Hey, this is Shane, the host of From the Shadows podcast, and I'm here with Jason, the super producer.
Greetings, everybody.
And the one and the only resident skeptic, the Ozark Howler.
Hey, I'm here.
Can you guys tell the excitement of the Howler?
Well,
no, all right.
You know me, man. I try to under-promise and over-deliver, right? So I don't need catchy. Hey, I don't need catchy phrases. I don't need snappy hooks. Ain't no clickbait with me. Okay, it's the real deal.
There you go.
Well, for all of our new listeners, since we're a new member of the Odyssey Radio Network, we'd like to invite everybody to stick around after this short intro and check out what we like to call the Midweek Howl. And what the Midweek Howl is it's just our little story time with the Ozark Howler, in which we try to lighten your week up a little bit with a 10-15 minutes of laughter. So stick around, laugh with us, enjoy the stories. No harm, no foul. So just be ready to go to a world that you probably hoped didn't exist in the world.
And expect to be entertained.
Expect to be entertained. So you got it. Do you have any warnings or?
No, you know what though, I wasn't. But what I was going to say is, so maybe after I just told you there's a hook, there's no hook, there's a hook. You know, I think I said it earlier on the last one I did with you guys. You know, I got a story for almost everything. You know, because I was on the street for almost 30 years, so I got a story for everything. So if you got a subject, send it to From the Shadows podcast, and I'll tell you a story about
it. Yeah. And for those new listeners, the Howler has 30 years of being a sheriff, a highway patrolman, air marshal, a homeland security, and probably a lifetime of just being an all-around funny dude. So
redneck, man, redneck. There you go, redneck.
So we hope that you give this little segment a chance and go check out the Howler. And like you said, if you got some stories that you guys are interested in, asking about, or if
he's going to have to send it to you guys because I'm not on social media, so it's got to go.
Yeah, he's not on social media. So if you really want to say some good stuff about him, we'll share it with him. And if you say some bad stuff about him, don't waste your time. He won't ever hear it. He's kind of fragile, so we won't let him. So with that, thanks for welcoming us onto the Odyssey Radio Network, and we hope that you enjoy the show.
Well, let's get the vacation special episode of the Midweek Howler started here. If only our super producer had been recording the last 45 minutes of the pre-game,
we'd be done.
We'd be done. We'd be done. But so everybody tuning in for this edition of the Midweek Howl, we got the super producer Jason somewhere in his bunker, his very own bunker.
I'm in my Amazon bunker.
His Amazon bunker. We got the Ozark Howler deep in the Ozarks in his bunker.
Mm-hmm.
And joining me from our vacation deck, from our deck at our vacation home here in the Outer Banks, is a very special guest for this episode, Mr. Todd Redmond, our first sponsor for the From the Shadows podcast, whose cute little daughter Reese does from time to time. Reese is something to think about. So, Todd, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Thanks, Todd. Good to see you again.
You too.
So for those who don't know, first of all, the Howler last couple episodes threw the gauntlet down, saying anybody out there has a topic that they want to talk about, he's got a story for it. So I thought, what about? Well, for those who don't know, Todd is the patriarch of a garbage business, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that his parents started back in 1967.
Whoa.
Yeah, long time. And so he's got some good garbage man stories. Okay, so I thought, okay, let's put the howler to the test. Can he go toe to toe with Todd on garbage man stories? Now, I will warn you that some of these garbage man stories that Todd may tell may or may not include a much younger version of myself. So anything that may sound incriminating is purely sensationalized for the podcast.
Yeah, right.
So Todd, get us started. Give me one of your best.
One of my best garbage truck stories.
Now, if we've lost half the audience here because they're like, man, I don't want to hear a garbage man story. So I'm sorry about their luck. Sorry about their luck.
There's got to be bodies in the trash or something, right?
No, not that we looked at. We assumed maybe there was a few. Most of my garbage truck stories have to deal with my friends, including Grover, over the course of our many years growing up in Bucyrus, Ohio.
You don't got to tell them where it's at, man.
Most of my friends worked for my parents at one time or another. Summer jobs, quite some interesting stories when we would get bored on the trash truck. But just to start, you got to understand, my dad and mom started it in 67, and my dad drove for probably 45 years, absolutely loved being in the garbage truck, practically lived in the garbage truck.
Just because he liked completing a task or being the service person or seeing everybody in town or what?
Seeing everybody in town, just being out and about. Now, the thing of it was, we start typically 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning to avoid a lot of traffic and a lot of the riffraff, and usually dealing with a lot of sleepy workers other than my dad. My dad was always wide awake.
But and you guys got to understand, this was one of those garbage. This wasn't in like an in-town, in our town, okay? They serviced rural customers.
Out in the country, right.
Out in the country, and those little towns of like 1,000, 2,000 people. You know, so we didn't spend a whole lot of time in a big metropolis, but small towns are a lot more fun.
Yeah, a lot more fun. So, anyhow, not to name any names, but like I said, most of my friends worked for my dad at one point or another over the course of the years. And my dad, I don't know if it helped him stay young, but he lived vicariously through a lot of my buddies and a lot of their stories, whether or not they be true or not. But anyhow,
are you questioning some of the stories that I told?
This is just a comical story. In the garbage truck, and especially running the hours we worked, we broke down quite a lot in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. And at the time, we did have a mechanic, and he still was doing work for us up till a couple of months ago, that would come out and make service calls anywhere we were at the middle of the night if my dad could get a hold of it. So one morning, my dad and two of my friends who were workers in the truck broke down about 5 in the morning in a small little town near a high school, but in rural Crawford County. And they broke down right by a payphone, right by a general store in this little town. So my dad went and used a payphone, and this is pre-cell phone days. This was probably early 90s, and went and called our mechanic, told him something was up with the garbage truck. Mechanic's like, hang tight, I'll be there in about an hour. So they all climb back up in the truck, and this is probably 4 or 5 in the morning. Excuse me. And they fall asleep until the mechanic, headlights and stuff, wake them up, and they all kind of slowly get out of the truck. And they're trying to figure out what the problem is with the garbage truck. Well, my dad gets out of the truck first and takes a leak, like behind one of the tires, and then goes and greets the mechanic, and they're kind of trying to solve this. So one of my very eager friends gets out shortly after that, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, and starts, snooping around the truck trying to figure out what this problem is. Well, he sees this leak underneath the cab, not knowing what it was. So something inspired him to get down and put his finger in it and taste it to see if it was leaking antifreeze. And so he hops back up. He's like, well, it ain't leaking antifreeze. And my dad was like, well, I know. That's my piss. I just pissed there. So this day, and like I said, I'm not naming this individual. He denies it, even though I heard the story like 5 hours after it happened.
Would this individual be...
we're not naming
would
him.
This individual be the...
He's just...
Would he now work at a vocation that the Ozark Howler used to work at?
Well, he's very highly respected, and he's got a very
pillar of the
high-powered
community
job.
Yeah,
he's a pillar of the community.
So he's the commander of the Highway Patrol
He's a
Post?
pillar of the community.
Oh my goodness!
He's a pillar of the community. So we haven't let him live that down to this day. Why I would taste?
Is that his nick? What's his nickname? Piss or what?
Piss shot.
No.
Yeah, there's old Pissy.
I wouldn't taste anything coming out of the garbage truck. So.
No.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's
wow.
That is a good one.
That is very good.
So, Howler, you got a good. You got.
Well, I mean, how do you top that? I've never. I mean, the out here in the Ozarks, see, Ohio was settled what 30, 40 years before Missouri.
Oh, geez.
Okay, so there's. Okay, so 19 years. So, but it was settled prior to the statehood, so it was settled a couple of generations. So people from here just seem to be a little smarter than that, because they would die if they did. But I don't even know how to even, what I thought about though is you're telling me. I remember I grew up in rural Missouri before trash service. I mean, that was a big deal when, and you obviously know because your dad had to go out and develop those routes, right?
Yes.
I mean, he had to, yeah. So I remember them coming around and saying, we're going to have a garbage truck because this, I mean, we kind of grew up on it was a farm, but it was a hill farm. And before that, we burnt everything. Yeah. I mean, when I think about how
we just threw it out in the woods.
Well, we had kind of a big ditch up in the woods, and we put everything there. And when it'd get a bunch, my old man would go up there with a bunch of gas or something and light it on fire. Now, I didn't, what? And you just burn it down and pile it in? But, my fondest memories is me and my big brother and other kids, we'd go up there with our 22s and shoot rats because there was real rats in the junk pile, and glass bottles. I mean, I remember shooting glass bottles by the bushel basket load, no ear protection, no eye protection, I tell you what, I was really pre-Antifa. I could go out and mess some shit up if I wasn't old and fat now and inclined to do so. Because, you know what I mean? I mean, burning trash and breaking glass is something I knew. I mean, yes.
Yeah, it's like you got your bachelor's degree. Well,
that's right.
In social activism.
Yeah, you went through your academy training for your Antifa academy training.
You guys are old enough to all remember glass bottles.
Oh, yeah.
Road signs, mailboxes, and just fucking breaking them.
Whoa. We weren't vandals. Come
on. It's not really vandals. You're liberating the glass.
Hey,
you're turning it right back to earth. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Now, Todd was he was telling that story. Dude, what about the story where your dad at Ridges fell?
Oh my God!
I'll sleep at where?
Okay, so I'll set this up a little bit, but so his dad, Todd's dad, he went on 2 hours of sleep a day, basically
2 or 3.
So because he didn't want to miss anything, so he'd stay up till 10 o'clock, get up at 1, ready to get on the garbage truck. So anytime he could catch some sleep, he took advantage of it. We could jump off. I ain't kidding you. He could jump off the back. We could jump off the back of the garbage truck, throw a can in, empty it, turn it, and he'd be sound asleep at the steering wheel up at the front. We have to buzzer him. Okay, so knowing that he could fall asleep to snap, Todd's going to tell you probably one of the funniest.
So So like Shane said, my dad could sleep at the drop of a hat, and my dad knew everybody. So he had a guy that would paint and repair our trash dumpsters at his farm. Not really a farm, but he had a big barn behind his house. He lived in rural Bucyrus as well. And like I said, this is a really pre-cell phone. So my dad would just swing in at his shop when he was done with the route to see if a dumpster was ready. And if it wasn't, he'd go on his merry way and go home. So he stopped in this guy's house one day. It was during the school week, probably 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And the guy had a dumpster done. My dad was finished with his route. He was going to go deliver this freshly painted dumpster somewhere. So he hooked the truck up to it. And my dad always wore earplugs in the garbage truck, even though it was hard to hear there anywhere else. Hard to hear in the garbage truck anyhow. He thought he was saving his hearing. So if you would get in the cab with him, you had to almost scream for him to hear you. But anyhow, he thought nobody was home at this guy's farmhouse because the guy had a second job. I think he worked at a local factory. So he was going to take a nap at this guy's house. So it's a nice day out. He lays down in this guy's gravel driveway. And
not even in the truck.
Not even in the truck.
No, he gets out and he's laying in this guy's driveway with like his arms crossed, laying down in the driveway with his earplugs in.
And the truck's running.
Oh my goodness!
So the truck's running. So all that noise. He's got his earplugs in.
This guy's daughter, who was probably a freshman in high school, happened to be homesick, and she gets up. And she looks out like the kitchen window, and she sees Mr. Redmond laying in the driveway.
Truck running.
Yeah, and so she's freaked out. So she calls her mom wherever her mom works, and she's like, "Mom, Mr. Redmond's laying in the driveway." She's like, "Well, is he okay?" And she's like, "I don't know." So her mom says, "Well, go out and try to talk to him." So she goes outside, doesn't get super close to my dad, and starts yelling at him, Mr. Redmond, you okay?" And my dad doesn't respond. So she calls 911. And next thing you know, like the fire department or whoever comes rolling in there.
He's still asleep. Truck running.
And
earplugs in.
This little girl's just mortified and in tears. And they're consoling her because they thought, she thinks my dad's dead. And they go over and finally one of the guys like shakes him. And he's like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't think anybody was home. I was just taking a nap." And Kelly, I'm not going to say her last name, was just petrified. And she thought she was seeing a ghost when my dad got up, and he had to go like console her and be like, "I'm so sorry." She ended up writing a paper about it when she was like a junior or senior in high school because she ended up running track with my sister, and like. I think my sister has a copy of that paper somewhere.
Didn't phase him.
Yeah, and it didn't phase my dad. He just, I was just sleeping. I didn't think anybody was home. Nothing about it. And yeah, that was not uncommon for him to sleep anywhere.
Oh my God!
Wow.
He was notorious, man. And you get it sucked. Let me tell you, being a 19, 20-year-old kid.
Working on a garbage
truck in the summertime, and you didn't. Come on, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Stink.
Oh, yeah, but we just want to get done.
And my dad just loved it.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, though, like 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes he'd be like, "Well, Grover, I'm tired. We're going to pull over and take a nap." Like, what do you mean take a nap? I just want to get done. You know how uncomfortable it is to take a nap in the passenger seat of a garbage truck?
Passenger seat of almost anything.
Right.
I know. But oh God. We used to do some crazy stuff on there.
He had a key almost to every local rural school. He was friends with the janitors, and they would give him keys so he could stop in the middle of the night and use the bathroom. I don't know how many times
he'd go in to use the bathroom.
And fall asleep.
Or come back out through the cafeteria with
some graham crackers.
I was thinking milk, 2 little
milk
cartons of
graham
milk.
Crackers, yeah. And I remember one of the schools was going to close, and this was after my dad wasn't driving much. And it had probably been 5 years since I had been in that school. We had picked him up, but I hadn't been in the school. And the janitor came and asked me for my dad's extra set of keys. He's like, "Hey, I need those." I'm like, "I have no idea where those are." He's like, "You're serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I could get in trouble for that." And I have no idea where my dad's keys are.
Yeah, I never realized the power
of the garbage man.
Of the garbage man.
Yep. And he knows. Knew or knows.
I remember I was reading I'm getting so old. Time has really accelerated in my last few years for whatever reason. And in like 2010 or 12, there was a girl in Ramadi or Baghdad, Iraq, that had a blog going. Now you can imagine Baghdad or Ramadi, Iraq, and she was, and I get confused because I'm out of the game anymore, the difference between Shias and Sunnis, but she was in the minority her entire life. For her people for 1,000 years have been in the minority. And the crux of her blog was, even though they had been picked, and we had come, coalition forces had come and removed the government, and theoretically they weren't the minorities anymore. And, we give them all this newfound freedom. Can you hear me? I'm getting some buzzing in the background for some reason.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, is that the ocean? Is that you guys aren't in the ocean?
No, I don't know what that is, but it just went away.
It was the wave going back out. Anyway, to make a long story even longer.
Jason, don't ruin the ambiance, man. It's the ocean. Okay, you always got to be a buzzkill, man.
To make a long story even longer, what she said was, as bad as it was being a minority in that country, at least with Saddam, the trash was picked up.
There you go.
Hey, that's the first thing anybody talks about, man. If you go into a big city, man, it's either clean or there's trash laying all over the place.
Well, hey, not because they're burning it all. So I try to see the positive of everything, and they just seem to be picking everything up that's flammable and some things that aren't and burning them, right? So maybe this social unrest, if that's what you want to call it, is really a godsend. It cured COVID. It cured COVID almost overnight.
So, like we were saying before we went on air, how'd you like to be the garbage man going downtown?
No, thank you.
I don't even know. I don't know if like in Minneapolis, where I lived for a long time, I don't even know if there's any, especially on that south side, I don't even know if there's any garbage to pick up anymore because there's no places to pick it up. The only thing, glass. That's the only thing you can pick up now is glass.
Yeah.
Hey, I was in a conversation the other day about a house that burnt on the inside.
Yep.
And the people talking about it couldn't believe that the fire department didn't clean up the house after it burned. I said, "What are you
talking?" Did they think that that was gonna clean up?
Yeah, like that was part of the fireman's job.
Well, it ought to be. They don't do much else. They ought to just let the things burn all the way down. I don't understand this. Try to pick them up and then you got to burn down the house. Let them all burn down to the basement. When I was going to retire, what? Think about it. Just let them burn all the way down. I was a cop, and they were always into it with the firemen. You know what I mean? And I remember the old guy that had left the police department, had a lot of rental property, had some very successful businesses. To this day, he's he's retired, lives down on the coast, on the beach, down by Orange Beach, Alabama. But I just remember for the longest time, he wanted to. Every year, the fire department budget got bigger and bigger, and I just remember he used to he'd say, we just need a checkbook that says fire department down at City Hall. And when your house burns down, you just walk down to City Hall and say, "Hey, I lived at 921 West Elm, and my house burnt down. It was valued at $250,000." And City Hall could just write you a check. Because in a whole year, they'd only have like one structure fire and a couple of car fires. So his point was we could
rather
just
than
pay people's damage. Yes. Hey, they had this thing for these buses, and the city got, I don't remember, they spent $1 million on buses, and their average passenger count was like 5 per bus or something weird like that. And he read what?
5 per bus?
Yeah, it was something real, because people didn't ride the bus, you know what I mean? Everybody got a car.
Right.
And, his big thing there was for what one bus cost, they could buy 5 Lincoln Continentals, I think is what it was. And he said those bus drivers would be more comfortable driving a Lincoln. It'd be more efficient. People wouldn't have the negative connotations of riding a bus. They would just always be dropped off in a Lincoln, and it would help the community. Just buy them Lincoln Continentals,
it'd be like a real driving Miss Daisy.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just But back to the fires, and I got so many fire stories. When I was going to retire, I got my adjuster's license, and in Minnesota, there's all these fires. You just can't imagine all these fires that ultimately end up with the garbage man picking all this stuff up. And when I say all this stuff, dumpsters, usually it's roll-off dumpsters. And what? Most interesting thing you were talking about, they wondered why the fire department didn't clean it up. I've seen some of them where you get a fire in the wintertime and they go dump about 30 or 40 or 50,000 gallons. If you're in town, they get good hydrants. They'll dump thousands of gallons a minute. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll turn two things. The outside will turn to icicles, but the downstairs will fill up 3, 4, 5, 6 feet deep because all this junk gets in a drain. So the basements can't drain, and they turn into a block of ice. And as an adjuster, you can't settle you're talking to like your house frozen, basement full of ice. Hey, Mr. Lewis or Mr. Grove, what'd you have in the basement? You'd say, I have a 70-inch curved Magnavox TV, brand spanking new. Okay, you got a receipt? No, it's just right down there. Well, how the hell can we walk down there? But anyway, yeah. But normally you just do roll-off dumpsters, and they throw everything in the dumpster, and you just stand there and take pictures of it, or your contents are just worse. But I've seen 16. Now, this means something to you. What's the big roll-off dumpster? 16 yards, 18 yards? What's the big? 30 yard. Yep. Okay, so I seen 16 dumpsters come out of one house in northern Iowa.
How much?
16 dumpsters. It was an old woman that lived there with her 2 daughters. She was in her 90s. They were in their 60s. None of the 2 60-year-old daughters had never been married. They had just several thousand acres that they just cash rented. So especially the last 10 or 15 years, you guys know in Ohio what that cash rent payments bring in. They had hundreds of thousands of dollars in income, and they bought shoes, they bought clothes, they bought, and they got in a fight. I'm trying to think how it all went down. They got in a fight. One sister killed the other sister. Mom had a stroke. Probate made them.
Gosh.
What? And I was going to say an insurance company, but I don't want to say it.
What trailer park was this?
This was a big old 2-story farmhouse with a basement out in the country. That basement, yeah. And so when she killed her sister, she lit the place on fire, but they saved it. And the fire department, some of the rural fire departments are very well funded, and they were able to save it. But had 16 roll-off dumpsters come out of one house.
Wow.
What's left? What would be left?
Hey, I seen like 3 or 4 roll-off dumpsters. I don't remember now. That came out of a double wide.
What?
Now listen to me. It was a double wide. I say double wide for entertainment purposes, but it was a modular home, and it was a homicide. A gentleman that was killed and it could have been an accident at the hands of his grandson playing with a gun, and it was so.
Oh God!
I hate to laugh at that. That's the way you put that. That's just kind of funny. I'm sorry.
What did I say?
It's the way you say. Well, playing with a gun, but
we're talking about Jason, let me tell you how this dovetails into what we're talking about.
Okay.
And when the 911 call come in, they said somebody shot my, callers on the line said 4 black guys shot his grandpa.
And I remember, who else is going to blame it on, right?
I remember being at the courthouse with a bunch of cops when what they call a plectron, when the ambulance, all this stuff's getting, the cavalry is mounting up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I remember getting in a car because I was in a detective role. I had, probably a hooded sweatshirt because that's what I was famous for. But I just remember this rookie cop saying, I know right where I was just at that house 3 days ago. And I said, okay. He goes, you want to ride with me? Because I had an unmarked car. I didn't have red lights or nothing. So I remember getting in this with this zit-faced 22-year-old kid at the courthouse. He turns all his red lights and siren on in the parking lot of the courthouse at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And he I'll just never forget, he cuts the wheel as hard as we're parked where it says police cars only, like parallel parked on a street, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a downtown. I mean, you're 4 blocks from the Missouri State Capitol. There is people shopping, people carrying babe, whatever stuff is out there. And I never forget, we're in park. He starts this thing up. He turns his red lights and siren on, and he turns that wheel, and he floors it and lays this big old Starsky and Hutch black mark, a big old Jason black mark. Hey, and then he's got to immediately jam on the brakes because every block has stoplights, and our light's red. So he made this giant, and then they had to hit the brakes and stop because we had a red light. And then, he looks both ways, and he lays a black mark. He goes to the next block, and now we're kind of going down the hill. Hits the brakes. Looks both ways. Lays another black mark, and takes off. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? Hey, and these dispatchers are relaying this thing like Joe Buck at a Cardinals game. And the 4 of them come off down the block, and they're and it's like they got 3 hooded sweatshirts. They got this, and we're going to be the point guard. I mean, we're the car. We're the man. You know what I mean? I got Zit Face and the guard. We're going to be the first one. So these dispatchers are relaying this stuff to us play by play, just like that. And the caller says there's 4 of them, and and they're on foot. You just can't imagine. And I vividly remember looking over at this kid driving, and I said, there ain't been a black dude drive. If there's a black guy in that neighborhood, he's freaking lost, or he's a cop driving out there looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just does not sound feasible to me. And we get out there, and Grandpa's laid on the front porch like a lung shot. When people get shot, I don't know if you guys deer hunt or anything, but when you shoot these deer, they run until they die. Right?
Yes.
People are the same way. So he's sprawled out in the front yard off the porch, and he has spewed light pink frothy blood, just like a deer, from his lazy boy out into the yard.
Yeah.
And this kid was trying to concoct this story. And when I say concoct a story, now Zitface, dude, he's on scene. He's on the radio. He's calling. You just can't even imagine all the stuff. I mean, I feel like I'm this is like chips on steroids. This is like, I mean, I don't even know. They got a freaking helicopter inbound. I mean, they've got the state police helicopter is going to be there any second now because we got 4 black guys running through a neighborhood in the suburbs, out there where this is at.
Somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you got city cars coming out because we're actually in the county, so technically the black and whites are supposed to stay. But yeah, the cavalry's coming, and I never forget looking at this kid. I set him in front of that black and white, or not, our car wasn't black and white, it was white, but setting him in front of that cop car, and I said, "Tell me what happened." And this kind of breaks the little rules because he's juvenile, you know what I mean? And he's telling a third story. Now I've heard him tell a story out there to me and his Zit Face. Then I told him to hear. I mean, whatever this kid's saying, you know what I mean? He was. It's like this guy was. The first one looked like LeBron James. The second one looked like, I can't even Tiger Woods in the third one. You know what I mean? This kid's coming up with crazy shit. So I just put him on the spot and said, "Why did you shoot your grandpa?" He said, "Well, it was an accident." And I said, "Well, accidents happen." He goes, "I didn't shoot him." And I said, "Well, that's okay, son. I know you did." And anyhow, to make a super long story even longer, this guy had so much stuff. You remember remember when flat screens first come out? It was like a rear projector that,
God,
you know, like 4 or 5 foot thick or whatever.
It took 4 people to move it.
Okay, well, this double wide had like a midline in the middle, you know, where they join the halves together. So there's like a wall down the center. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And this old man had a lazy boy with one of them stand-up ashtrays. You know, where the ashtray's right at the arm height of your lazy boy?
Right.
Oh. And then he had a little lamp and like a coffee table thing on one side with big button remote and some other stuff. But there was so much stuff in that house, that flat screen projector thing. When you put your feet up on that lazy boy, because that's where he was shot. He was shot with his feet up on the lazy boy. There was not enough room to walk between this old man and the big screen TV. That's how much stuff he had hoarded in this house.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Just like a little old narrow footpath if the lazy boy thing was down.
How'd he get out then?
And you know, he was shot under the right armpit through the lungs. And what I think happened is I think it was a Winchester, little octagon barreled 22, and we surmise, because the kid was a dipshit. I mean, there was a whole lot of juvenile problems, which is the reason why he was with Grandpa in the first place. That he either found that gun or he come in and challenged the old man. When the old man reached out and grabbed it by the barrel and tried to pull it away from the kid, he ended up shooting himself, basically, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And once he got shot, he tried to go out to either find to get help of some sort, and expired out on the front step.
Wow.
But anyway, the day or 2 or 3 after we cleared that house for the family, the first thing they did was they had dueling dumpsters. They had 2 of them sitting side by side, and they were throwing every single thing in it. So funny.
Oh, it's just
that's a tragic story.
You spend a lifetime accumulating stuff.
They just throw it out in the trash.
Anyway.
You know, that's exactly right. I thought this the other day. I told somebody, as I got older, I decided I'm going to start collecting money, because it just seems to
be the only thing nobody throws away.
It's bullshit. You don't know some of my relatives. I live in Lake the Ozarks. I watch people throw money away right and left.
Oh man.
So anyway, I done forgot. I had a couple garbage stories, and I forgot what I was going to tell. They weren't near as, I never found any bodies. We used to do these trash pulls, where, if you had some in-depth, multi-level criminal investigation against somebody, they'd call them trash pulls, where you'd go out on their trash night and take their trash back to the station and pick through it to see what, to find some evidence.
Dude, so you mean every night on the garbage truck we were involved in an investigation? We always.
You guys went through and found good stuff.
Oh, listen, man, you don't even. Now that I can't be prosecuted, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we used to go. What else? What else you gonna do when you're standing on the back of a garbage truck and the next stop's 3/4 of a mile down the road? We go dig the trash. We used to go get Marlboro Miles, Camel Bucks,
right?
Mountain Dew. What was it? They had some giveaway.
Pepsi.
Hey, you never. What do you think a bowling ball does when it's frozen and you take it out of the back of a garbage truck and throw it on the ground?
I didn't know you could freeze it.
I didn't know you can freeze it.
Didn't it?
Shattered, just like that TV did.
Wow.
Wait a second. I never did.
Oh, I bet you did.
Oh, man. Yeah, there's some, you'd be surprised what people throw out.
I don't know. I bought for my youngest boy, or my oldest boy, a little John Deere pedal track, not pedal track, but the rechargeables. And when he got on it as like maybe 18 months old or 2 years old, he hit the pedal, and the first thing he did was crash it, and he never wanted anything to do with it. So it sat around my house. My daughter used it, and my youngest boy used it. And I remember setting that on the curb, and the trash man stop it. And I don't remember if it was too complicated. I don't know why because I put it out there with the trash, and he jumped off, and he'd seen me, and he says, "Is it run?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You got the charging cord?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You mind if I leave it here?" I said, "The charging cord's in the house, but yeah." And I don't remember why my wife wanted to throw it away. Maybe because it was faded or whatever. And he said, would you leave it here? Can I come back and get it later? And I said, "Yeah, I'll put it right here." And I put it right by my garage door, put the charging cord with it. He come back and get it.
One man's
trash is another man's treasure. That's right.
Another man's treasure.
So. Mm-hmm.
Well, before we sign off here tonight,
yeah,
how are you getting words of wisdom for what's going on in the world right now? I mean, we're trying to entertain people. We give them a little laugh. Is there anything you got? Any words of wisdom? Send us off.
Well, my mom would say, "Get right with Jesus, because you don't know when he's coming back." But I think I said it last time. And if they keep this up, and some people are going to meet Jesus, because I seen them boys send the Minnesota guard out the other day. They called their Red Bull Brigade. In Minnesota, they have a bunch of infantry guys, mechanized infantry. And back in the day, now my war stats are off because I've been down here in the woods and retired. But 10, 12 years ago, Minnesota was second only to Texas on losing guard members in Iraq and Afghanistan. Texas had the most kids that got killed. Minnesota had the second most kids. So when I see these 26, 27-year-old kids standing up there at the Capitol with an M4 on the street somewhere, and I see these college-age Antifa-type protesters throwing bricks and rocks, the last thing I'd throw a brick, a rock, or a Molotov cocktail at is some 26, 27-year-old kid that's been in a sandbox 2 or 3 times and is probably dealing with some emotional issues anyway. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
So I just do not understand how stupid them people can be.
Well, I tell you another thing that they're being stupid about is when they're going out in front of highways and they're blocking the highways on both sides, and then they're parading around, and then when the traffic try to stop, and then they sit there and start kicking the cars and stuff like that, and then they wonder what happens when they get ran over.
The truck driver, the tanker truck, you see it on national news? I guess he got through before they put the barricades up. So he ran up on the ramp, and those people thought that they were free on the interstate, and he went rolling up the ramp, and then, of course, he got panicky. He eventually stopped, and they pulled him out and kicked the shit out of him. But that'll teach him to stop. Anybody that jump on the interstate, I mean, I drive up a 4-lane. It's not even interstate. It's a controlled highway every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And there is everything under the sun. Possums, armadillos. I mean, we got armadillos by the truckload killed. Deer.
Yeah.
Why on God's green earth would you jump out in the highway and not expect to get killed? It's beyond me. But I think that's a city deal. That's a city deal. Now, there ain't no country boys in them. You know what I mean?
Because no, that's called self-entitlement.
I mean, how stupid can you be to block a damn highway? Or I can't believe some of them burnt themselves.
Yeah.
Or, the way they're lighting. But when I saw them light that church on fire, it's been there since 1815 in Washington, D.C. That's when I ain't got no use for them now.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, so I don't even know. But I think as we talk pre-podcast, I don't think it's got, for a couple million years, mankind has done kind of what they wanted to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you were a caveman and you were a big enough caveman, you could kill the mastodon, or you could kill the bear, and you could be the baddest son of a gun until somebody knocked you off, or you got syphilis and died, or whatever. But you could do it. Okay, you can do it. Like Alexander the Great, right?
Oh,
I mean, in some ways, he was pre-Antifa, right? He just kept on conquering, and you could either submit to his rule. Yeah, that's the way it was. They burnt some shit. They raped, robbed, and pillaged. Okay, so the last couple hundred years that has slowed down, and whether it's Western values, Judeo-Christian values, whatever you want to call it, mankind. So when I see looting and rioting stuff, I just see mankind going right back to where they've been for 1,000,000 years, So, I watch these talking heads on TV saying, well, we need to do this or some policy or some, I think tank is going to do this or we're going to do that. No, that is primal to go. And some of it looks like fun. I'll be honest with you. So these people are probably having fun just doing whatever the hell they want, And I don't think any amount of kumbaya is going to put the genie back in the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's out, and when these people realize that, in the greater Minneapolis, Minneapolis probably was 600,000 people, and they got 800 cops. So I can't do my math because I got my shoes on, but let's just do it real quick on my phone. It says that is 800,000, or what I say, 800,000, right? Or 600,000. 600,000. That's how many zeros? 6 divided by 800 equals. So there's 750 cats for every cop. That just ain't good odds.
No.
Okay, everybody here's got to fight 750 people just to break even.
No.
So I think
good odds for any Spartan soldier.
Well, I don't know about all that. Even they got whacked, didn't they, at the end?
That's right.
I didn't see the movie.
Well, you had to see the movie to understand that part. That was the scene in the movie.
So I don't even know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm rambling so much. It just breaks my heart to see the part of it. I'm glad because I always said when the collapse come, I wanted to be here. And when I was young enough to help my kids fight it off, but the other part of it just breaks my heart to see how the world is in real life. I thought COVID was bad enough because I couldn't go on vacation. This makes it even worse.
Well, I think the bottom line is it'll all get resolved one way or another. The world's going to keep on going.
That's a good way to say it. One way or another, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As we stand out here looking out at the ocean, crashing wave after wave over the sands, you just realize how small we are, how insignificant we are, and how long those waves have been crashing on that shore.
They're going to keep going.
Long before we're here and long after. So,
yep.
Right.
So on that note, I think you guys stay safe. Maybe Todd and I will come back from vacation. But I know two things we're not doing. We're not delivering any mail, and we're not picking up any garbage.
Well, at least it's better than the post office down there keeps delivering all this garbage. What's with all this mailers and stuff?
Hey, listen, we're losing money. You better enjoy it before we go broke. That's another episode. That's another episode. I got that one lined up.
Okay.
Okay.
See ya.
All right, gentlemen, enjoy that vacation.
You too. Later.
All right. Take it easy. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, a final word. Please visit us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/From the Shadows Podcast, and on our Instagram page at instagram.com/From the Shadows Podcast. You can visit our webpage at FromTheShadowsPodcast.GoDaddySites.com, or contribute to our Facebook discussion page called After the Shadows, and tweet us on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/podcast_from. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.